Good morning, friends and colleagues online. I believe everyone is doing good, and I believe you're also going to make a time with me, throughout this video to the end. And the reason is that I'm not going to keep long. Today I'm not going to keep long today. Something snappy, something that it's something that I want to discuss with friends, and it's just language, what we call the apocalypse or the apocalyptic language. I have a friend, who claims to be a teacher of the apocalyptic literature, but it sometimes end up even trying to render the apocalyptic, statement literally, like physically, without proper hermeneutical, interpretation, in terms of deciphering what this apocalyptic language means, even though he claims to be a teacher of the apocalypse. But normally what we see is he rendering most of the apocalyptic statement literally. Anyway, that is just by the way, because we can all claim to be teachers and you know orient our knowledge towards a particular word or a particular phrase, so on and so forth. And that is also okay. All right, that is good. So long as his followers believe in him, have no problem. I have no problem with him. Anyway, brother Boampon, sometimes your name is Boampon, but I you call it Boampon. So brother Yao Boampon and Samuel Cranton, two most talented brethren, together with Raymond Owusu. I am hoping that one day we are all gonna come together and to join me on the radio to broadcast my lessons. I believe you're going to make time. Unfortunately, we are far apart, but regardless of the distance, I think that we can arrange to all meet. Anyway, so we are going to look at some of the apocalyptic judgment language specifically, because it's one thing that sometimes imparts our understanding of the scriptures. And those who are not well acquainted with the apocalypse or the apocalypse languages, or this language or literature, tend to have problem in terms of interpreting some of these statements in the Bible. And so that is what we want to look at. Yesterday, in the course of my broadcast on radio, this statement came in. This statement popped up, and the person, believed that, it was something that was going to occur literally. So, if I claim that the associated event, okay, that within which that statement is made is past, then how did the Lord, did this? Because it's all about the Lord, stepping his feet upon Mount Olives and splitting it. So if I claim that, of course, if this text is fulfilled, because it pertains to the destruction of Jerusalem, then how did the Lord visibly, physically, come, step up, his feet upon Mount Olives and split it? So he has issue with that. So I have to, I opted to take it upon myself, uh, you know, um to explain or to record a video, so that those who are online or those of my colleagues and friends may take advantage to come to the realization of the implied meaning of this apocalyptic literature, or statement that we often come up whilst when reading or studying the Bible. So that is the case. You see, the Jews in the first century understood some of this language, And remember, the Bible was not written in our language, neither was it addressed to us primarily. We were not the primary or the first audience, okay, or the recipient to whom those letters were written to. We are perhaps we do secondary application, but you know, for us to have it correct, we will have to understand the primary application. Okay, then that will enable us to do proper secondary application, because most of these letters were written to the first century churches. Okay, so we today can only do the secondary application by understanding the primary audience and their application. Okay, we can do proper secondary application by understanding the primary application, and it's special to those to whom these letters were written to. See, they were the Jewish primarily, and so remember they also have idioms in their language. They have literally devices in their language. They also have all kind of what they call it, adverb, pronoun, the part of speech and figure of speech. They all also have these in their languages, and so and adages. They also have adage in their language. So sometimes they are well acquainted with some of these things. Some of these stuff that I have just stated. So when they are communicating, when a Jew is communicating with his fellow Jew, they can employ, some of these uh, parts of, language, like in terms of being it adage or being it apocalypse and so on and so forth. So they understood, what that our local dialect, there's a statement we call, or there's an adage or a euphemism, what we call a mighty tree has been uprooted. A mighty tree has been uprooted. And what that means is that an uh, uh someone of a high repute, maybe a government or a king or a queen, has passed away, or that is what that statement means. But literally, you might think that there's a mighty tree somewhere that has fallen down as a result of storm events. Okay, but read the accounts. Mauli, Mauli, hello, hello. All right, so but we understand what that means, because you see, according to our culture and according to our custom, when a king kicks the bucket, when a king dies, you want to announce it. You cannot just go and say that this king has died. No, we don't do it that way. We just don't say it. We have a way of conveying the message of his death to whoever we want to communicate the death to. And we say that a mighty tree has been uprooted. You understand? That means maybe a president is dead, or a king, a queen, someone of a high repute has passed away. So there's a way of saying it. But when I communicate this to a non Akan, even when you come to my country, we have about 46 uh, different languages. Okay, so even if I am uh, communicating with someone who is not of my tribe, they will not understand what I am saying, because they are not acquainted with the implied meaning of some of these languages or this statement. Okay, so they are going to take it literally. So it's going to be like, oh, well, it says that there's a mighty tree somewhere that has fallen, either by some event or by whatever cause, anthropogenic, event or whatever. Okay, perhaps someone might have healed it down, so on and so forth. But when I am communicating with an Akan, they will understand that to mean, the death of an eminent or someone of a high repute. That is what it means. But the Americans everywhere, those who are not well with acquainted with our language, they are going to read a different meaning into it. That is the point I am trying to drive home. The Jewish in the first century, they also have some of these things that they used to communicate with one another. Okay, so for you and I to understand some of this language, of course, you have to understand a bit of their language. Then we can, you know, read meaning, into them when they are pop up in the scriptures. Because remember, Jesus Christ walked with the Jewish people, and so whatever he say or whatever he said, the Jewish his audience and the disciples well understood the message he was trying to put across, okay, or the message that he was trying to communicate to them. They understood it. They had no problem understanding it because it is their language, so they understood it. However, when we the non-Jewish, when we are reading it, and for instance, there's a statement like the heaven and earth is going to pass away, because we are not well grounded in the Hebrew language or the Jewish language. It is going to be something. It's going to sound in our ears like, well, there Jesus might have been talking about this literal heaven and the literal earth, but they had different and a totally different meaning to what heaven and earth means. You understand? So to them, they would not have had problem, understanding it. But we, because sometimes most of our Bible colleges are established by the white, and most of the preachers are taught by the white. They will have to impose their understanding upon, the scriptures and how they interpret it. You understand? But once you understand the language of the Jewish, okay, the original audience, the primary audience, then you will understand that no, it's a different, something different altogether. You understand? So that is what we have to take, into account when we are studying, this language. So we have begun the studies, and we are going to be reading, a lot of meaning into it. And so, this is what happened yesterday. And I was trying to um, demonstrate that when it comes to Matthew chapter 24, that we don't have any chapter division, or we don't have two separate comings of the Lord. There is just one coming of the Lord. All right. So to dichotomize the chapter into first coming of into two separate comings of the Lord, it will be to do the service to the scriptures. And the problem has to do with Matthew chapter 24, verse 36, when he said that birth. So that word birth, many believe that the birth means that it's a separate, or it's separate to the chapter, but that cannot be the case. So yesterday we have to go to the prophet, because the prophet were those who first predicted about the coming of the Messiah, and the coming of the Messiah was a promise to Israel. That is what people have not come to this realization, that the second coming of Christ was a promise to Israel. They believe that, well, it's a promise to the Christian, but it was a promise to Israel first. But the remnant who eventually have to enter into the body of Christ, becoming like Christians, they will have to live to realize this hope the Lord has made to the fathers of Israel. Okay, the fathers, what do we call the fathers? And so we went to Zechariah chapter number 4, and Zechariah chapter number 14, because that is where Jesus Christ had that quote from. Paul said that all what they said, all what he taught, all what he wrote is nothing more than what the Moses and the prophets said will come, including what we call the eschatology. So the eschaton, anything pertaining to the eschaton, were first predicted and pronounced by the prophet and Moses. So the New Testament is pointing to the fulfillment and reiterating what the prophet and Moses said will come. Okay, so but that is not what I want to go there. That is not what I want to do. But I will want to tackle the apocalypse, the apocalyptic, statement, because it popped up along the line, and someone said that, well, if you said that this is fulfilled, then when did Jesus Christ, step a foot on Mount Olives, that causes to split. And I believe that it's because of the way, we understand apocalypse, or because we are not well grounded in apocalyptic, literature. So we believe that the Lord was visibly, physically going to step upon feet upon Mount Olives, and he is going to split it out. But that is not the case. So now let's read what Zechariah said in Zechariah chapter number 14, verse 1 downwards. Said, behold, the day of the Lord is coming. So this is the second coming of Christ, not the incarnation birth of Christ. No, this is the second coming of Christ. So the second coming of Christ was first predicted by the prophet, including Zechariah. And the New Testament writers saw the idea of the Lord from Moses and the prophet. That is what the Bible says. So it says that, behold, the day of the Lord is coming, and your spoils will be divided in your midst, for I will gather all the nations to battle against Jerusalem. The city shall be taken. Now, we know that has to do with the destruction of Jerusalem. The city will be taken, the houses rifled, and the women ravished. Half of the city shall be taken into captivity, and but the remnant of the people shall not be cut off from the city. I believe this is the new city, the city of the living God that is going to come, and the remnant will inherit this new Jerusalem, or the new city, and that city is called the city of the living God. Hebrew chapter number 12, verse 22 following, and that is also called the church of the firstborn. So that has to do with the kingdom, or the church of Christ. Okay, so that is what we have. When others are taken into captivity, then the remnant will inherit, this promise the Lord has made to Israel. Now, when you get to verse 3, it says that then the Lord will go forth and fight against those nations as he fights in the day of battle. Then verse 4, in that day, so that is the eschatological day, that is the day when the Lord comes. You see how Zechariah connected the day of the Lord, with it, or to the day when Jerusalem will be destroyed. So it means that the coming of the Lord will be the time when Israel or Jerusalem is destroyed. So when did that destruction occur? It occurred in AD 70, when Titus, led the Roman army to destroy Jerusalem. But that battle or destruction was ordained by the Messiah spiritually. He was behind the Roman army because he used them as his instrument of judgment to carry out that judgment. And that is how the Lord has always acted in judgment in the past. He has always used, he has acted through instrumentalities, nation against nation, whales, quakes, snows, and so on and so forth. And remember, the Lord is also going to come in the last day, the last of the judgment. He's going to carry out this judgment as he has seen the Father acted in judgment in the past. John chapter 5, verse 19 following. So we don't have to, we have to, come to the reality, of this. Now, the what is unique here is that the uniqueness, regard in relation to this judgment, is that the Lord has always acted in judgment through instrument. He has never physically, bodily, come, but he has acted, through instrument. That is, he used this instrument to, carry out his judgment. So that the Christ is also going to come in the same way as the Father has acted in judgment. So it means that he's also going to use a nation to destroy, to carry out his judgment. And that is all. That is what we have. Unless we have multiple, the days of the Lord. This is the day, one day of the Lord. Okay, so now verse 4. And in that day his feet shall stand on Mount Olives, which faces Jerusalem and on the east. And the Mount of Olives shall be split in two. Excuse me. In two. Excuse me. And the Mount of Olives shall be split in two, from east to west, making a very large valley. Half of the mountain shall move toward the north, and half of it towards the south. So now, good morning, Madam Akosia Frimpoma. Thank you for being one of my ardent watchers, and I believe you are doing good. I've been watching your videos, and I think you have to. The recipe, I've been following your recipe, but I think if you can, put them in a video, in a kind of like a recorded, thing, so that those of us who want to learn some of these stuff will be able to do that, because I believe it's also going to help those young women, the upcoming ones, will also help them to strike acquaintance with how some of these food are made. I believe you are doing well, and sometimes, so I've been watching you. You've also been talking, recording videos, trying to admonish Christians on how to watch themselves against this so-called prophet of our time, and I've been enjoying it. And All right. Okay. So, all right. The Lord, may the Lord keep you and bless you. Anyway, so we are going to so we are continuing. So this is what someone thought. Someone thought that it was going to be the Lord physically coming upon the earth, and he coming, to step a feet upon Mount Olives, and is going to split it. Now, so he believed that, well, this has not occurred because, when the Lord comes will be the time when he steps a foot on Olives, and Olives is going to be destroyed. But see, this is what I was talking about. If we were to be the Jews, this wouldn't have been a problem at all to us, because we will understand what this language means. Okay, to stand upon olives and to split it into two, one to the east and one to the south and north and what have you. This is what we call the apocalyptic judgment language, apocalyptic Jewish judgment language that is well spoken and well known in the first century. So if you were to be the Jewish, this wouldn't have been a problem. See, this is what I was talking about. Now I have Madam Akosia Frimpoma Papa B. He owns allegiance to Fanti in terms of tribe, parts to the Fanti, and I think others to the Ashanti. So whatever it is, she's full an Akan woman. Now, Madam Akosia, if I should say that, you understand Fanti, so eduponi bi etutu. How do you understand it? Eduponi bi etutu. Eduponi bi etutu. Another edua kese bi etutu. How would you understand this? A mighty tree has been uprooted. You and I can, and I know you are going to. So it's a question to you. So I am waiting for your response. You and I can, and say so. Yakade eduponi be etutu, and I did be etutu and I say nana kwekura, and I say nana kanchiegua. The chief has gone to the village, or the chief has kicked the pour the salt away. This language, what does it mean? See, madam, that is over to you. Anyway, so this is the problem. The brother had. The brother. Had when it is stated that, well, this is fulfilled because it pertains to the fall of Jerusalem, and that is tied to the coming of the Messiah. However, if he asked me that if I claim that this is fulfilled, then how did the Lord descend upon olives, and how did he split olives? This doesn't, see, it is not something literal. That is the problem sometimes we have when we try to assign, when we try to be literalistic, when even the term is metaphorical, okay, when the thing is euphemism, okay, when, this literally devices, take precedence, in some of the statement, and we fail to recognize them, that it will be the problem, okay. But this is what we call the apocalyptic Jewish judgment language. What it means is that it means a fall of a nation. When this is used, it means that a fall of a nation. It is described in such a way to tell you the brutality, okay, with which this destruction is going to take, or this destruction is going to occur. Okay, so the splitting is mean, to it meant to imply a total annihilation of the city in question, and this is the city of Jerusalem. So Christ, Zechariah is already trying to say that Jerusalem is going to be destroyed, and there will be no place for them. Now remember what Jesus Christ said, with regards to the destruction of the temple. He said that no stone will be left on one another. So everything is going to be blown away, and there will be no trace for them. You understand? Matthew chapter 24, verse 1 to 3. Okay, so but let's do a bit of this. Let's read two more texts, and that will be over. I believe that will help us to understand what this means when the scripture says that the Lord is going to stand upon olives and is going to split into two. Now let's go to Nahum. We are going to Nahum, right? Nahum. Now, today, Madam Akwesi, I'm still waiting for my answer. Eduponi bi etutu. Another mighty tree has been uprooted. And I say, the chief has kicked the bucket, or has poured something. We have a way of expressing, making certain expressions, and they have their implied meaning in reality. So that is what I want you to answer, so that we will understand what I am trying to say. All right, so now in Nahum was one of the many angels. So uh if you read Luke chapter 12, verse 48, it said that for everyone to whom much is given from him, much will also be required. So Nineveh and so on. You see, we would want to go into his persona, but now so in Nahum chapter 1 verse 1 to 5. So let's see whether we are going to find a similar language, a similar judgment language, a similar apocalyptic Jewish judgment language. So in verse 1 it said that the burden against Nineveh. So this is what it means. So it means that whatever we are going to talk about relate to relate to Nineveh. That is the destruction or the judgment that is going to come upon Nineveh. So it said that the burden against Nineveh, the book of the vision of Nahum, the El Koshet. He is from that tribe, El Koshite, right? All right. So verse 2. Now let's read about God's wrath on his enemy. So says that God is jealous and the Lord avenges. Now remember what Paul has admonished the Ephesians that vengeance is mine and it is up to me to avenge. So they will not have that capacity to avenge, but that vengeance belongs to him. So here Nahum is saying that God is jealous, and of course God is jealous. Remember, even when God had entered into marriage contract with Israel on the Mount Sinai, Exodus chapter 19, he has given them that law to observe it. Okay, in order to keep that relationship, in order to keep that marriage, he has given them the law, and one of the law is that they should not marry any other god. They should not marry any other god. Okay, I have also seen my good friend Obin. I've seen my good friend Obin. Obin, I hope you are doing well today. I hope you are doing good today. I never knew you even came. You attended UCC. At least I am here, so you should have come and pay us a visit. But I don't know. I learned you are now no more. I went to your profile and realized that you have graduated. At least you should have paid us a visit here. Or we were not acquainted yet. Those days. You were not an acquaintance, I believe, anyway, but I hope one day you are going to come here. Okay, so, Ben, this is what we are talking about. We are looking at what we call the apocalyptic Jewish judgment language. And this is what you are saying. Like, I hope you also an Akan. So, in an Akan, what does it mean to say that it do be to, I am a Fanti, but you are an Ashanti. But in the ability, the Ashantis will say, a dua kɛseɛ bi etutu, a mighty tree has been uprooted, or maybe the chief has gone to village or hinukwe. So this statement, I want you to also, give me an answer as an Akan and as an Ashanti. What does it mean? If you are, voice, if we make this expression, what message are you trying to convey to our audience or those to whom we've been sent to? So I want you to help me to understand it. All right. So now we have seen one in Zechariah chapter 14, when it is stated that the Lord is going to come to stand on olives, and olives is going to split into two. As yesterday someone said that, well, that means that literally Mount Olives will ought to be destroyed. And since that hasn't occurred, it means that Zechariah chapter 14 hasn't. Then that is the problem we are trying to address. So here we are now in Nahum, and it is Nahum chapter 1 that has the Lord's judgment against Nineveh, because the burden is against Nineveh. All right. So I have one answer from Madam Akosia Papa B. She is, uh, well, very good. All right. So I am getting the answers. Thank you. Thank you, brethren. I am getting the answer. So one means that a great man has passed away, or king, queen, important person. So that is funeral. Anyway, that is good. That is what I was talking about. We the accounts have a way of expressing, the depth of this, high profile person, individuals. Some Kweku Anan also says that means a great person has passed away. Now, so assuming that Madam Akosia, you are in US, you meet your colleague, a white colleague at work, and you tell the white, oh, a mighty tree has fallen, or a mighty tree has been uprooted. How do you think the white will interpret this? So it's also a question. And to you, brother Kweku or Ben, how do you think the Chinese man, or the American man will understand this language when you say that a mighty tree has fallen, or the chief has gone to the village on Hinukwe? How will they understand it? So that is what we are trying to teach. So in Nahum, that judgment against Nineveh. This is how he said. This is how it is stated. So he says that God's wrath, now I said that God is jealous and the Lord avenges. Now we all know that God is jealous. So as I was saying, the 10 northern kingdoms were given a bill of divorce. You know why? Because they had transgressed or they have broken that everlasting covenant, which stipulates, or forbid them from marrying another god. Once God has taken them as his own, as his wife, he did not anticipate them to marry another man. So that is be is it polyandry? No, that is not. When a woman marries more than one, how is that called? Polyandry or what? Anyway, I think there's a term for, just term for it. There's also, anyway, I think there's polygamy, polyandry, and so on and so forth. All right. So God is jealous, and He did not want to, split, or He did not want to share, His wife with any other man. Now, remember the church when it comes to the messianic wedding, with the church. Paul said that in Second Corinthians chapter number 11, verse 1 and 2, he said that I am jealous for you with the word a godly jealousy, not earthly jealousy, not earthly jealousy, but a godly jealousy, because I have betrothed you to one man as a chaste virgin. So Paul has betrothed or espoused the church to one man, Jesus Christ, a godly. So he was jealous. He was jealous, and he did not want anyone to share them, because he has espoused them to the Lord. So they were anticipating the coming of the Messiah, because the time of the Lord will be the time when he comes to consummate the marriage. And that is what the parable of Matthew chapter 25 says, that when he's coming, the wise five are going to meet him, and they are going to return with him to the wedding banquet. So that will be the time. So Paul was preparing the church towards the coming of the Messiah. So what the time, or when the Messiah comes, will be the time of the presentation. So he's going to present the church to Christ as a chaste virgin. And if you read Ephesians chapter 5 verse 24 through to 27, it's going to tell you that without wrinkle, without spot, and so on and so forth. So that is what that means. So the Lord is jealous, and the Lord avenges. The Lord avenges and is furious. The Lord will take vengeance on his adversary. Now, who were the adversaries in the first century? Who were this adversary? Now, remember, the Lord is going to come to avenge for the church. Okay, those who have troubled the church, those who have disturbed the church, the Lord is going to come and to destroy them. So, who were these adversaries? The adversaries is Satan is called adversary, or opposer, or the accuser. So, the Lord is going to come to destroy those who have opposed, who have accused, and who have acted adversarially, against the church. And who were these people? Who were those people who were persecuting the church, who were inflicting pains upon the church in the first century? It was the unbelieving Jewish. So the wrath of God will be against these unbelievers. And that is all, right? So it says that, taking a cue from this God's judgment against Nineveh, it said that the Lord will take vengeance on his adversary, and he reserves his wrath for his enemies. Now, remember what John the Baptist said when he was, baptizing these guys. He said that you brood of vipers, who advise you to, run away, from the wrath of God that is about to come. I believe I get a word right, the statement right, but that is what John the Baptist said when he called them brood of vipers, because they knew that there is the time of vengeance. The Lord is going to come, to avenge them, to destroy them. So by they, coming to repentance, through his baptism, it will afford them that opportunity to kind of like, wean themselves from the evils of their way and to embrace the kingdom. He prepared a way for the Lord to come. And when the Lord came, he started preaching about the kingdom. So in other words, he was preparing them towards the kingdom. And the Lord continued, he continued from him. Because remember, when he had, anticipated the Lord to have, come to his rescue, he said, I send them, he sent the disciples to Christ. No, the Lord, were you not the one whom I, spoke about? He said that, go and tell this man that I am doing this, I am doing this, I am doing this. You know what? John the Baptist has finished his work, so he was irrelevant anymore. So his demise wouldn't have been a problem. Anyway, so the Lord is slow to anger and great in power, and will not acquit the wicked. So the wicked will not be acquitted. It would shall surely, avenge, for the for the saint or for the church. So what happened the unbelievers, they thought that they have it, they have their way. But remember, no, the Lord, destroyed them in the AD 70 judgment. So even though he gave them time to, to repent, but they failed, and eventually they were destroyed. Okay, they were destroyed in that judgment upon Israel in, AD 70. So the fact that he tarried, okay, didn't mean that he didn't, come. Okay, he came because he was anticipating the many to come to repentance, in order that they may, save themselves from that wrath and judgment that it came upon them in, that AD 70. But it says that now the same verse 3, Nahum chapter 1, verse 3, that is the sea, says that the Lord has his way in the wild wind, okay, and in the storm. And the and the clouds are the dust of his feet. So see, the Lord has always come and shrouded in the clouds. Okay, so when you get to Matthew chapter 24, it is there. First Thessalonians chapter 4, it is there. The coming of the Lord has always been enshrouded in the clouds. Okay, so the Lord is going to come against the Nineveh, but he's going to come in that wild wind and in the storm, and the clouds are the dust of his feet. He rebukes the sea and makes it dry, and dries up all the rivers, all the rivers. Bashan and the Camel wither, and the flow of Lebanon wilts. The mountain quake before him. So this is what we call the apocalyptic Jewish judgment language. All this means that a fall of a nation. Nineveh is going to destroy. Nineveh is going to fall to that judgment. Okay, and the Lord is going to come to carry out this judgment. But you know what? He is not going to come physically, literally, bodily, but he's going to use a nation against it, or perhaps he's going to use storm, event, or whatever, just to destroy it. That is how the Lord has acted in judgment or in the past. So he said that now, verse 5, he said that mountains quake before him, the hills melt. Now the hills melt. How is the hill going to melt? So if you are not a bit acquainted with the apocalypse, the apocalyptic language, you might think that the mountains are literally going to melt. No, it implies a fall of a nation. So in that judgment, that apocalyptic judgment language, pertaining to the destruction of Jerusalem in Zechariah chapter 4, when it says that Zechariah chapter 14, when it says that the Lord is going to, stand, is going to put a feet on Mount Olives, and it's going to split into two. That is to mean that Jerusalem is going to, fall. So in Nahum 1:5 said that the mountains quake before him, hills melt, and the earth and the earth heaves, and at his presence. So he's going to come. So his presence will, come all these. Okay, his presence will come all these. Yes, the world and all who dwelt in it. So this is what is going to come. So this is what we call apocalyptic Jewish judgment language. That is not literal language, but that is how the Lord has, always come, that is how he has always expressed, his presence, in terms of judgment. Now, last one before we draw the curtains down, we are going to Micah. Is it Micah or Micah? Micah or Micah is Mich. However you're going to pronounce it, that is okay. But I think it is Micah, right? Micah. Others pronounce it Micah. All right, so Micah, we're also going to read Micah chapter 1, at least verse 1 to verse 5. Then we will draw the curtains down. So Micah, that is judgment against Israel. Okay. Micah, God has also sent, Micah to Israel to warn them, against the impending judgment. So in Micah chapter number 1, and the verses 1 through to 5, I believe in most parts. So it says that the word of the Lord that came to Micah of Moshe in the days of Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah, kings of Judah, which he saw concerning, Samaria and Jerusalem. Okay, now verse 2. Here, all, so this is something that is going to come against Jerusalem. What we are going to read is something that is going to come against Jerusalem. So it said that, here, all you peoples, listen, O earth, and listen, O earth, and all that is in it. So at least there is that correlation between Israel and earth. So Jerusalem were called, earth. Let the Lord God be a witness against you, the Lord from his holy temple. See, the God's presence is always confined to the most holy place. The Lord's presence has always been in his tabernacle. Remember, you see, how this is how Lord's presence has always been depicted. He has always been depicted as being in his tabernacle or being in his temple. So in that coming of the Lord, it says that there are some standing here who shall not taste death till they see the Lord come in his kingdom. And what is he going to do? He's going to come along with the saints that are fallen asleep in him, and they are going to meet in the kingdom. And what they are going to do? They are going to consummate the marriage, and they are going to reign, with him forever and ever. And so that the way to the most holy place has now been cleared. So when we die, we are going to go to the Messiah and to continue this festive, occasional activities, with them there. Anyway, so now verse 3, behold, the Lord is coming out of his place. So you see what is coming? The Lord is coming. Behold, the Lord is coming out of his place. That is the coming of the Lord. But this is in relation to Jerusalem, right? I believe this occurred in BC 586, not the last Jerusalem destruction, but this is that coming against Jerusalem, many comings of the Lord in Jerusalem. So, for behold, the Lord is coming out of his place, out of his place, and tread on the high places of earth. So that the earth there has to do with Jerusalem, because that judgment is against them. The mountains will melt under him. So you see that language again spoken. The mountains will melt under him. That indicates total annihilation of Jerusalem. Not that there are now, Jerusalem is always depicted as sitting upon 6 mountains, right? In Jerusalem, and I think they have their names. I've forgotten the names, by the way. Okay, so that melting of the mountain, that it means that Jerusalem, the mountains are the pedestals, okay, upon which Jerusalem rests. So when the mountains are, uh, put to melt, it means that Jerusalem is going to cave in, and that indicates the destruction the Lord is going to, bring upon them. So it said that the mountains will melt under him, and the valleys will split. Now, so the valleys will split like wax before the fire, like water is poured down a steep place. All this is for the transgression of Jacob. So you see, Jacob, Jerusalem, Israel. So this is all this for the transgression of Jacob. So this is how the Lord has always, acted in judgment. You see, when they transgress, the Lord, then the Lord comes to punish them, unless perhaps they heed to the admonition of the prophet that have been sent to them, and they will, entreat the Lord, through repentance, and the Lord is going to have mercy on them, and He is going to, annul that intended punishment. Okay, he that intended, punishment. So and he said that all this is for the transgression of Jacob and for the sons of the house of Israel. What is the transgression of Jacob? Is it not Samaria? And what are the high places of Judah? Are they not Jerusalem? So this is what we are talking about, especially the verse 3 and verse 4. Our focus, or the focus of this studies, is on the apocalyptic Jewish judgment language. So when you come to the New Testament and you come across some of these things, do not be amazed, or do not be literalistic, in terms of understanding or explaining. Know it that it has to do with a destruction of a nation. So he said, behold, the Lord is coming out of his place. He will come down and tread on the high places of the earth. The mountains will melt under him, and the valleys will split like a wax before the fire, like waters poured down a steep place. So this is what we call that apocalyptic Jewish judgment language. And now, so let's see. My last text, and I think I have. This year also bundle ya ne boy di o nipa no ko obesi na wahwe video wi oya ade tenten sa obesi na onye scout to be oben, you know how hard it is for us to even purchase bundle, but at least I just want to read something small, and I guess I'm bundle share video you. Anyway, so in the context of the fall of Jerusalem, that is reiteration and fulfillment of Zechariah chapter number 14 in verse 29. Matthew chapter 24 verse 29 says that immediately after the tribulation of those days, now, so there's going to be the time of tribulation. Okay, so the Lord is going to come to punish those who have subjected the church to tribulation. So master here is you. Is there credit you to me too? Sure, we are crash. I don't cry away. If you may be new, you'll see levy. Person anka me ba na eja me de me drink bi eze pure water na pure water na me de no kwa ma no manasa. At least I need to cool my throat. into me into maybe upon says yeah. All right, so immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun will be darkened and the moon will not give its light. Now, this is what is this is Zechariah chapter 14, verse 6 and verse 7. At least it is there, the diminishing of the light. That is, what Jesus quoted here. So this is Zechariah chapter 14, direct correlation. So immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give it light, and the stars will fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens will be shaken. This is what we call apocalyptic Jewish judgment language. This is not a literal, occurrence, in terms of constellation disturbance in the constellation or the planetary system or however, uh, scripture, whatever you're going to say. But this has to do with a fall of a nation, or this implies the fall of a nation. And the nation in question here is Jerusalem. So it has to do with the destruction of Jerusalem. That is expressed this way. So remember when Jesus Christ spoke, made this statement, the Jewish around him and those who were working with him, his retinue, they understood what Jesus Christ, meant. He knew that he wasn't talking about literal moon going, the sun going red and stars falling. No, it means that a nation, Israel, is going to fall, and that is that falling that took place or that occurred, in AD 70. So this is the apocalyptic, studies, verse, chapter 1. Next week or perhaps tomorrow, I'll be going to farm on Wednesday. So tomorrow I'm at home, and so maybe I may come with the chapter 2. Anyway, so until we meet again, brothers and sisters, thank you for your company, brother Kweku, Anan, or Ben. I said I want to come to your church, but I don't know at least how they're going to receive me. And Madam, so our sister Kosia, Frimpoma Papa B, thank you for your company. May God help bless us all. Until we meet again, I will say bye bye.